Hey everyone, Reno here with the Body Electric School, and I am joined by a special guest. I'm gonna call him my friend, and also uh, someone who's really inspiring and really significant to the Body Electric community. Joseph Kramer is an American sexologist, filmmaker, and somatic sex educator, and no secret here, he's also the founder of the Body Electric School and of the profession of sexological bodywork. So no big deal. No big deal, Joseph. And I'm delighted to be here today with Joseph. We spoke just the other day, and I propose that we have a conversation, honestly, among friends from a place of genuine curiosity and dialogue. So, we don't even know what to expect entering into this conversation, but we have discussed there are some ideas we'd like to cover and explore together, things like um, practice sustained sexual arousal and the different places that people go during um, arousal and sustained arousal. But before we dive into that, I just want to say welcome, Joseph, and I'm curious, like, how are you today? How's your body? How's your heart? Yeah,
Thank you. I am good. It poured down rain here in Oakland
yeah.
this morning, and now it's blue sky, sunny, and I like this. I've been out. Um, I've been outside for a while. It's beautiful,
Mhm.
and I'm inside now in the technology. I'm, I'm glad to be here with you. This is my second venture online with Body Electric. I did a podcast with the Body Electric podcast, but now we're talking. Let's,
There's two things I want to ask you, and like, so I'm gonna ask them both, and you can decide which one to start with. Actually, I think I'll ask them in the order I want you to answer them. So my first question is around um the technology piece, because what I've learned about you is you kind of steer clear of it and you seem to be real world, real time, right? And I guess I'm curious, like, what's that about? And it's because it seems obvious given the work you do that you're probably like a more real world, real time, hands-on, real life kind of guy. But yeah, yeah, how are you navigating this like aversion to technology, given the work you do and in the times we're in?
it's not a version.
Yeah.
Very early on, just the name Body Electric that I chose for the school. This was from obviously from Walt Whitman's poem, I Sing the Body Electric. And the idea was that some of the highest places I've been in my life are times when I'm just feeling my body, the vibrations, the electricity, the aliveness in my body. And so feeling this aliveness has become very important. I became first a massage therapist and I dealt with breath work and then teaching sex and sexual states and sexual arousal. And this was feeling aliveness in the body. And I did go into making videos about this. I made more than 100 hours, but I never learned to edit. I sat next to somebody who was editing. I never learned to shoot film. I hired some of the best filmmakers that I could, all for the last 30 years. So in the area of technology, I've never become. Uh, that's not my. I'm a teacher that's used that medium. But more recently, in the last 10 years, I've noticed more and more an epidemic, I would call it, of disembodiment. And the disembodiment, I think, has to do with the options that are offered to people through their screens, through their phones, through the internet. They can watch any movie they want. They can talk to their friends around the world and see them as we're talking. Their attention is pulled into the visual, are into the audio, are into the written, but their attention is pulled away from the body. And when you're in person with somebody, it bounces back and forth. You're still feeling your body. There's a forgetting of the body. And so I don't have an aversion. I think the tech world, it's amazing what we have. And it's just the beginning, what's happening, what's available to us. But I recognize that it's a seduction for some people that pulls us away from our body. And for some people, younger people, they their sex is not very important, for example. There's statistics that under 30 men and women, um, double the number of people 15 years ago. 15 years ago, there was significant people not having sex. There's double that number now, not having sex in a year, in the whole last year, up to 28% for some men. They may masturbate, but they're not having sex.
What do you think that's about?
Um, the options. One
Yeah.
thing is it's more interesting what people see on the screen and the way they interact. And if you can imagine, this gets me, that likes, that little likes on social media become more important than feeling states and the body. That doesn't register anymore. So, or not very much. So I think people um, are missing out on the potentials of the body. This is so my view of measuring of both would be, or of dealing with both would be, how is there something you can do in your day that pulls you into your body and you go, wow, and gives you access to what your body has to offer, and you also have access to whatever else you choose.
I love
So,
that.
so this is, and I think this is what the Body Electric School does, offers all kinds of practices and classes teaching people to come into their body, even if it's online.
This is it's so interesting that you mentioned this because it's this is how I live. And people were very concerned about the barriers to connection via technology during the pandemic. And I remember immediately knowing that that wasn't going to be the case because I had worked remotely prior to the pandemic. And in my sessions with my clients, my coaching sessions, we would have these like profoundly deep connections, through a screen. So I knew, worry not. But I was on a video call recently, and one of the practices I invited the group I was working with into was, and it came through so organically. What happened was, um, I was tuning into where I was moved to go next with the group. And so I said, give me a moment. I'm going to check in. And I closed my eyes and I took a deep breath and I took a moment of pause. And I remember the group was actually quite surprised to see me do that and also inspired and intrigued by it. And I guess they hadn't considered that you could take pause in any moment, even with a group facilitating, and just tune in to that deeper place within each of us, and await a prompt for what is meant to occur next. I live my life in this way very frequently, and of course, I'm pulled in and out of it. I imagine you do as well. But I love what you're pointing to here, the possibility and what's on offer when we're willing to slow down and to connect to our body and to see what prompts arise.
And if we're forgetting our body, this is the place where we feel a lot of different emotions. For example, love.
Hmm.
We really feel an open heartedness to somebody. Well, if you're if you're kind of shut down, you're not checking in there. So too often today, people, oh, she or he is my type. They're beautiful. They have
Mhm.
this. So they have criteria, but wait, there's feelings that you can check in and see. And there's people you're around that you go, no, I really don't want to be around him right now or her right now. These are things that our body tells us, our gut feelings, our heart, that we often let go of and don't have access to. You're absolutely right.
Totally.
And we can pause. I'm glad that you're the teacher. They go, the teacher paused. If he's going to do it, I'm going to do
I'm
it too.
gonna do
I'm
it.
going to
Yeah.
pause.
Because they can't imagine. I think the thought in those circumstances is like, oh, what if I look silly? Or, oh, how am I? I think a lot of it has to do with how we're going to be perceived. There's this notion of that awkward silence, if you will. And yeah, it might be awkward initially, but it's rich. Like that space, that pause, that breath, that moment to tune in. I remember saying to them like your in a way your life depends on this. Like there's so much that comes from that place of presence, that pause and tuning into your body. Otherwise, of course, we can carry on being sort of distracted or, as you said, I like the word you used, like seduced by all of the pings and pongs and pangs and all the stuff. And before we know it, we're like, where have I ended up and what was going on here? Yeah. On that note, I'm curious, like, because I want to get to the piece around sustained sexual arousal, but like, what is a what does a day in the life of Joseph look like? Like, how are you moving in the world and through your day these days? Like, what is that like?
First of all, I am 78 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and that's strange to say because there's not a change of feelings. Um, I was talking to my neighbor who's 70. She is 78 also. And she said, you know, I could be 50, I could be 30. There's not something that registers if you're
Mm-hmm.
healthy. If if growing old has become something that's, constricted us or all. So about 15 years ago, I figured out that health for me was working out. And I was working out regularly, but I was working out less so 15 years ago. So beginning of my 60s. So I hired a trainer and I saw this trainer. He said, I do half-hour sessions. That's all. And I thought, oh, I can handle that. And he was right next to the body electric school that I had. He was in the building next door. So I hired him. And the other reason I hired him was that he was 3 years younger than me. So I wasn't hiring somebody that was 20 years or 30 years, his body, and he was a trainer. So that was 15 years ago. Right now, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I go out from my home down to the San Francisco Bay. And right on the edge of the bay, looking at San Francisco from Oakland, from Emeryville, we meet down there and I do an outdoor workout.
Wow.
And that involves weights and balance and running and everything. But it's maybe a half hour to 45 minutes. So 3 times a week. Other days, these days, I've just started running again. I was running earlier in my life, but my knees were hurting me. So I told my trainer 3 years ago, and we've been doing knee exercises for 3 years. And finally, I could do real intense stairmaster things where the pedal comes down, but it's not doesn't jar. But running outside, it's bam, bam, bam.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally got that fixed, I think. So I've been running a mile to 2 miles every day for the last month or so, mostly from my neighborhood, but I can run up to the Oakland Hills, but then it's up. and I'm not doing so well running up, but I get a real thrill. There's something about ecstatically being in my body. It's kind of like sexual arousal. It's a different type of arousal. It's the arousal of sweating and working out. Um, then I work with an assistant, and we do um, sexual education, writing and planning, and videos, and our structures. So my main job is sex education. And I started a profession of professionals who teach sex education, who teach arousal, called sexological bodywork. And this came out of the Body Electric School's Sacred Intimate training. And as I left the Body Electric, I wanted to make this more legal. And in California, sexological bodywork is legal, hands on erotic work on a partner. But other people came and took classes from me. So there's now schools around the world, and I deal with all of those schools. I provide um, curriculum for them, things to deal with. Um, Not like sustained sexual arousal.
Yeah.
And the profession is practice based. So humans learn sex. We learn new things about sex. We learn new ways of being sexual by repetition. We repeat it again and again. Doing something once can influence us, but it doesn't mean we're great at it. It's like shooting free throws or baskets with
Well,
a
your
basketball.
knees and the exercises are a perfect example. Look at how long that took and where you're at now as a result of that, you know? So it speaks to the power of practice. So let me ask you this then. Like what on the note of sustained sexual arousal, which I'd like to hear more about because that sounds juicy. Um, you talk about practice. So like I'd love an example of a practice, you know? Maybe one of your own or one that like stands out to you.
Yeah, let me give you okay. And I say this to all the listeners. Imagine you're 12 years old,
Okay.
12 or 13, and you've masturbated. You've come into a place where masturbation feels really interesting. It's, oh my God, two or three times you've done this. And maybe you've looked online or all this, and you found something that said, if you do this while you masturbate, it will change how you have sex for the rest of your life. If you heard that. So you're right at the beginning of puberty, and somebody says, if you do this. So I have something like that. And when parents say to me, parents often say, what can I tell my kids? My kids are coming into being teenagers. How can I make sure they're healthy? And, I have one suggestion I say to parents, and some of them are kind of look at that I'm going to tell you the practice. Some of them, so here's the practice. Say if you're 13 or 12, if you heard that for your teen years, half of the time that you masturbate, half of the time you masturbate, you do it standing up. There it is. And when you stand up, you get to move because you're masturbating. So it's just about more mobility. That's the practice. Movement. It doesn't mean you're moving around the room, but you can move any way you want. But masturbate standing up half the time. Now, if in your teen years half of the time you moved while you're sexually aroused, what do you think that would have done? What effect would that have on you?
That's a great question. I mean, so I'm gonna try this. I want to stand up here for a moment and just notice like what I feel in my body. So I would say immediately I feel grounded.
And you can
Um,
sway a little bit too. You don't have to. Yeah,
yeah.
yep.
Yeah, so I think what happens is, um, and there's more of a connection to my whole body, not just one specific area, but it's really forcing me and being standing. It's like inviting me to be fully in my body and conscious of my whole body. There's something different, I guess, if I'm like laying down or kind of sitting down. Um, yeah.
So imagine, um, so some people fantasize. Imagine you're fantasizing having sex with someone. You're standing there,
Okay.
you're interacting in some way with a partner. Let your body move with that fantasy. You're so in your hands and your face, and you can just so, you know, as a sexologist, I'm really concerned about the amount of people who watch erotic films.
Mhm.
And the reason I'm concerned is not the reason I've heard anybody else say. I don't, um, I'm concerned because when people watch erotic films online or on their phone, their attention goes into that erotic film and they're forgetting their body again.
Right.
So here they are having sex, they're masturbating, or and whether you're female, male, non-binary, if you have a vibrator, often your attention goes into some fantasy or into it could be in your mind or into a fantasy, but it's away from your body while you're having sex. How does this affect? Then you meet a real person. Oh, I'm an expert at going away when I'm aroused. If that's your history, of masturbation. So if you're standing and moving, so I found this out. I interviewed 150 people who came to me for coaching, and I said, "What if you stand to masturbate?" Okay. By the way, 150 of them, I said, "Why don't you videotape yourself?" This is another thing I do.
Mm.
And they videotape. And if you videotape, and right after you videotape yourself masturbating, then you watch it and see what you think. Take notes. Say you're a sexologist now. You know what the first thing people say? All the major thing people say when they watch themselves masturbate right after they've done it. I don't look like I'm having fun. I don't
Wow.
look like I'm having enough fun. I thought
Wow.
I was having more fun from the inside. So but anyway, so I have on my website, orgasmicyoga.com, I have 40 different videos of people masturbating standing and men and women doing all kinds of exercises standing that people can check out. And of these people that I coached, some of them gave me, I purchased their video, they were all paid, and it's there, it's up online. Many of them were sex educators, the ones who are online. But but it's really nice to see yourself because you can see right away, I'm not moving very much. Or look at my face, I'm not having much fun. Or or I'm looking around and I'm distracted. You can tell all kinds of things when you look at yourself. Now that we all have phones, this is ideal for sex education. You can change your life real quick. You look at it, I'd say 10 sessions of solo sex that you videotape changes everything. You have to watch it right afterwards. It's not a few days later. And if you're worried if somebody's seen it, then you delete it. Don't worry about that. But this is we have this power right now. But anyway, standing up is the ideal thing because people start to dance or move their arousal. This is such a fun thing that they move and dance their arousal. And Sex at its best is a dance, a
Mm.
partner. You're moving, and if your experience is just lying down on a bed, and that's good, that's part of it. We're humans. We're looking for the best experience with the least effort. That's often so we're lying there and getting our, but if you stand up, you're also dancing your arousal. That carries over to sex with a partner. Wow, you're a live wire. You know, I think too often two people meet each other and they're half dead in a sense. Their bodies are asleep, but they don't know how to get into it. Uh, anyway,
Wow. Wow. I mean, I mean, so many tools, so many practices you've
yes.
listed. And what's fascinating is, I mean, any one of those will transform your experience, and um, they're accessible. They're accessible. And my guess is, a lot of people haven't thought of this stuff, like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. In fact, now that I've heard you mention it, I'm like, I might try some of these. I might try some of these. Yeah. I have a lot of fun with myself, with a partner. Certainly I'm having a good time. There's a lot of this stuff that I feel I intuitively got early on for some reason. I don't know why. But there's also a lot here that I can play with. So I'm curious to test it out. Yeah.
So in this class that I'm offering through Body Electric,
Sustained sexual arousal, it's called, right?
Introduction to
Yeah,
Sustained
got it.
Sexual Arousal,
Yeah.
and it's 4 classes of 2 hours. And what it is I am presenting practices that people do, like standing up, and that people go and they try them in the week. It's and they try them and they come back and report on what they've tried. Let me give you an example
Please.
of trying, um, for example, standing. So this was this was people who were watching porn and they're standing, and I this happened over and over. People lost their balance while they're masturbating. One guy has a big hand because it was oily, his hand on the wall, and he showed this to me. Why are people losing their balance? Because their attention is so in the video that they forget their own balance. This is how much they're not in their body. This happens regularly. So this idea of forgetting your body, you're not. So I have an exercise that I recommend if you're fantasizing, whatever you're doing, every once in a while, like your pause that you gave at your example, you pause for 5 breaths, whatever you're doing, and check in. What's going on in my body? What's just going on here? If you're in your mind, stop the fantasy for a bit. If you're watching porn, stop that. Just pay attention. You know what happens? People go, oh, because they've been masturbating, interesting things are going on in their body, arousal, but they're not noticing it. All of a sudden, they're noticing their arousal. They go, oh, quite often people hang out a little longer than 5 breaths. Oh, this is interesting. My body. Then they go back to whatever their fantasies or whatever. But this idea of, um, pay attention to your own body. What's going on? That's back to the body. So sustained sexual arousal is just a state. There's different states of arousal that we could go to: low level, high level, arousal that's kind of in our hips, but there's arousal that can move around our bodies. Especially if we take time, the arousal gets more and more intense throughout our bodies. Dancing your arousal.
So I'm curious about something. I want you to continue.
Yeah.
But do you notice a difference in how, like, do you notice a difference in how different bodies experience states of arousal. And I guess what I mean by that more specifically is like, i- is there a difference based on gender, for example, right? Gender or sex? Do you see this more commonly in these types of bodies and this more commonly in these types of bodies? Do you notice that? A pattern?
So I told you some people give me videos.
Yeah.
Where this started was almost 40 years ago when I started the Body Electric School.
Hmm.
And I started teaching erotic massage at the Body Electric because AIDS was around. And this was a safe sex. It was erotic massage that was safe. And so it was a way of interacting erotically. So I would see at the beginning, it was for men, and then it was for men and women. It expanded. My first classes were for men because that's who was getting AIDS. Um, but I saw people, prolonged arousal. People were getting stimulated erotic massage. They're lying there and just feeling the arousal. And all kinds of different people in the room were reacting in different ways
Hmm.
because we have our own sexual arousal habits, and those habits are often constricting. We control our arousal, we control pleasure, we have our openness. We have, like, working out, your body might be more loose. But I saw all kinds of people. And then they did this thing that I teach called the big draw, body electric
Oh
stuff.
my God, I remember it. May I just say, I remember being on that table after that experience, and I said, I could die right here, right now, and like it would just be perfect, you know? Like it was remarkable. I felt like I had died and gone to heaven. That's really what it felt like.
So the big draw for listeners or viewers is an experience where you've been aroused and stimulated maybe for a half hour, an hour. You're playing. And for men, the goal is not ejaculation, or men and women, it's not orgasm, but it's just arousal, to be aroused. And then the big draw is a way of clenching the body and holding, and then relaxing and just feeling. So it's kind of it's
Mhm.
not ejaculation, it's not orgasm, but it's a way of it's a pause, as you just say, in the arousal and just feeling your body. And each person has different experiences. You said I could die right here.
It felt like if I imagine what it feels like to enter some ethereal plane of just like peace and not like nothingness but everythingness. I didn't even that's what it felt like for me. I was like, "Oh my gosh. If I imagined what heaven felt like, this is what heaven feels like, you know?"
Reno, the when I did this 40 years ago, I was big in Buddhism, especially Tibetan Buddhism. And their book about dying is called the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. I think
Hmm.
it's a book of liberation. But on the first page, it has this exercise, and it said, "This is the way to die, that you just let your energy go all the way up and out of your body."
Hmm.
So I that was my intention, and you had that experience. I could just die here.
Oh yeah.
Not everyone. Some people see colors. It's
Yeah.
almost a psychedelic experience. The main thing that happens in this, and we're going to teach this in sustained sexual arousal class,
Yay.
but the major thing that happens is the arousal can lead to a place where you're not clear where your body starts or ends, and the outside, you just feel connected, like, to everything. You're one with everything. And it's in some realms, they call this non-duality. There's no other, we're all one. It's all connected. But there's a feeling state of that. Wow. And a lot of people feel that. So,
Oh, I
so
love this. This excites me so much, Joseph, because it like just the way you described it and the connection you drew between that experience and non-duality, I hadn't made that connection. And I've spent a lot of time listening to videos and engaged in conversations around non-duality, but I hadn't put two and two together to go, oh, I've actually had this experience, this
Yes.
non-dual experience. And it's not just something conceptual that's discussed, because in those spaces you'll hear people talk a lot about non-duality, but what you've just provided is a way to actually experience it in your body, not just as a concept. And I think that that is remarkable. Yeah. Wow. Wow.
So, yes, I think sexual arousal is a special medicine. I mean, we can eat certain ways that make us feel ecstatic. Excuse me, and we can exercise. That's what I like, working the body so that it's, there's just this feeling of ecstasy of, but we can be aroused and the arousal. And it sometimes it does take practice. This
Yes.
doesn't happen like that. And so this is also the problem today. We're in the Twitter, the X era where,
Hmm.
short things. I don't want to read a long thing. I don't want to have, I just want, no, well, you may have to practice. For example, standing up to masturbate. I think whether you're 14 or 40 or older, this is going to take about 10 times before all of a sudden you start to go, oh yeah, I'm starting to, this isn't awkward anymore. When you start something, it's awkward, even standing up to masturbate.
Hmm.
Any exercises, whether erotic or not, there's, and a lot of times it's much longer than 10 sessions. If you want to learn German, you have to practice. Well, it's going to be more than 10 sessions.
Hmm.
So, but anyway, that's what our class that starts in 2 weeks from now, and now we're at the beginning of April, is um, just a variety of practices for you to try. And different people can try different things, and different people are going to have different, like standing up. All kinds of people have different ways of doing this and making it their own and enjoying it. And some people go, it's not for me. I'm going to sit down. One woman told me, I like kneeling. She kneels
Hmm.
down. And she says, oh, then I feel more grounded. But the thing about standing or kneeling and moving is if you're sitting or on, if you're lying down to masturbate, you're in a you're having an erotic experience without much movement. That's all. And certainly Buddhists would go, you can have great experiences without much movement. You can
Hmm.
have, different meditation things, but I think movement can move,
Enhance.
yeah, enhance,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, so April 19th to May 10th, and it's online. So, it's easily accessible. I'm so excited that we're having this workshop. And there's a few things I want to say to to those who are listening that are really landing for me right now in terms of the power and the benefit of, this workshop, these workshops, these practices, because, I know for me initially my mind might immediately go to like the sexual benefits, right? Which and th those are amazing. What I think people miss sometimes are the spiritual, psychological, emotional, relational, professional, if you can imagine, benefits of tapping into work like this. I often speak in my work to this idea of magnetism or like radiance or attractiveness, let's say. And what I imagine is if we were sort of this vehicle, if you will, that had the power to both let's say attract and create simultaneously. Now, you tune that thing up in a workshop like this or any of these workshops, imagine how magnetic you become. Imagine how radiant you become. Imagine how creative you become. Like, imagine how juicy and sexy and appealing you are to be around, to be in the presence of as a being, if this is your practice, if this is what you're up to on an ongoing basis, you know? So I just see like life being drawn to you, whether that's opportunity or people or, ideas, like you become magnetic, I think, in a lot of ways. And I know this because even just being in your presence, the few times that I have each time, there's something that happens in my body as I'm being with you. And I think that this is something we don't always account for or we're not always aware of, which is like if you really tune in, like you said earlier in the conversation, you can kind of tell like who you're drawn to and who you're not, and
Yep.
why that is, right? There's a reason for that. And when we're turned on, people are drawn to us, Things that life is drawn to us when we're turned on. And the last thing I'll say on my tangent is life becomes sex, in a way. It's like you're kind of engaged in sex like all the time, whether you're eating or walking or reading or resting or working, you're turned on all the time, you know?
I I call this, or many people call this, erotic embodiment.
There we go.
That the erotic is integrated into who you are, and the erotic is a special vibration of aliveness. It's a type of aliveness. So we're being, you said radiance and all these other things, but I like the word aliveness. That we're
Aliveness. Yeah.
That's our way of being, and people like to be around people who are alive.
Hmm.
And we are a generation where a lot of people are into zombieism. Let's put it. And and I can't believe in my lifetime how zombies have become more and uh, more television and more movies. And I think that represents the feel in us of deadness too, that some people feel. So there's the aliveness and the deadness. Um, but I had aliveness and sexual arousal and moving it around through the body is a way of becoming more alive. I sing the body electric, Walt Whitman said.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Wow.
invite people, come and sign up for this class. You'll, even if you learn one practice that you use and that turns on your aliveness, but there's many, 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 many practices we're gonna go into.
So yeah,
Um,
April 19th to May 10th. You can visit www.bodyelectric.org under workshops to find out more, and reach out to us if you have any questions, email us at the school, reach out to any one of us. We're happy to answer your questions. And just know that there are multiple levels of entry to this work, and it's an ongoing journey, as we talked about. There are practices. And there's so much available to you if you're ready to embark on this journey. So, Joseph, before we close, is there anything else you would like to say in closing?
no, I think we've I um, it, it, I think we've invited people to this class if they wish. You know what I like is that there were some suggestions that people don't have to go to a class. Stand up when you masturbate, do it 10 times, dance, put on earphones and listen to some music and move while you're masturbating. Um, you also, if you're masturbating, holding a vibrator on your clit or you have another hand too that you can massage yourself with. So there's all kinds of things you can do without taking a class. So you don't have to take a class.
I mean, my wheels are turning, my juices are flowing. I'm like, you gave me plenty to work with, and I'm sure everyone else. So, thank you for your time, for your presence, for your work, for your generosity. Yeah, yeah, and for the ripples and the waves that your presence and your contribution just like continue to create in people's lives. Yeah, appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Joseph.